welcome to Crankworx World Tour.
The new normal. When it comes to Crankworx Slopestyle, normal means flip whips, 720s, and even the 1080. The new normal also means new pressures. Rogatkin first in Rotorua, Rheeder victorious in Leger. The race for the Triple Crown of Slopestyle is on. And young gun Emil Johansson could be the spoiler here in Austria. Third at Crankworx Rotorua, second in Crankworx Leger. There's only one position left for the young Swede, who's leading the slopestyle world rankings. The third stop of the World Tour, Crankworx Innsbruck Slopestyle, presented by Kenda, is live on Red Bull TV.
This is what it's all about. The place to be, Crankworx World Tour. Here we go.
Several dimensions are shaping victories.
1080, stopping it. Perfect execution.
The best mountain bike riders on earth.
Check the time here. Can he keep it up? He enters the final straightaway first. He does! Just barely too short.
One queen and one king will claim the title of best all-around mountain biker on the planet.
Twice in its incredible history, picturesque, idyllic, Innsbruck, Austria has played host to the Winter Olympics. And today, around its surrounding staggering peaks, it hosts the best freeride mountain bikers in the world for Crankworx Innsbruck, Austria, presented by Kenda. Willkommen, welcome everyone. How's it going? Pat Parnell, along with pro rider Cam McCall. And it is a beautiful day, and more importantly, an epic course welcomes the world's best. And I'll tell you what, this officially commences. We are past the midway point of the season.
I can't believe we're here already. And a first, 2 Crankworx festivals back-to-back weeks. So not a big chance for riders to hit the reset button, but a great opportunity for riders who were successful last week to carry that momentum into today.
Yeah, incredible stamina. Let's not forget, 2 riders sit on the precipice of making history here today. Will we see a Triple Crown winner this season? That means winning 3 out of the 4. You think it's possible?
It's absolutely possible. Brett Rheeder has a chance, Nicholi Rogatkin has a chance, and they're both looking great in practice.
Well, they call him the natural, and he's leading the overall standings. On top of the Triple Crown implications, it's all about the overall title. Let's take a closer look before we get underway. So natural or heir apparent, call him what you want. Emil Johansson sits high atop, followed by Ryan Nyquist, which is incredible in itself. But let's talk about the overall implications and how this season was probably going to unfold.
Yeah, for a little perspective on how we got here, let's take a look back at last week's event in Leger.
Last year, we left Leger unfulfilled, but in 2017, the Alps finally delivered. This season's Rotorua champ, Nicholi Rogatkin, faltered in France. The winner in Rotorua looking for a back-to-back win. Can he do it? Starting early in second runs, the Russian-American came out of the gates ablaze, steadily building a podium-worthy run. Unfortunately, his signature trick, the twister, took him down. Coming up short! And relegated Rogatkin to 14th. After missing competition in New Zealand due to an injury, Belgium's Thomas Genon's highly anticipated return did not disappoint. His smooth approach landed him just shy of the podium.
Nice style on that 360 tuck no-hander to inverted table.
The massively extended motocross style of Szymon Godziek usually wins in practice.
A cork 7 into the whale tail. That's a first for slopestyle mountain biking.
But somehow has never been able to string it together on event day. In France, he found his form. Unwavered by a crash in his first run, Sweden's Emil Johansson once again impressed with his progressive, relaxed riding style. Backing up his third place in Rotorua, he landed a run stacked with technical tricks, securing a solid second. Red Bull Joyride 2016 winner Brett Rheeder missed Rotorua nursing an injury. But in Leger, he re-emerged stronger, stringing opposite tricks as he seamlessly stormed back onto the scene, celebrating with the win in France. Incredible! Triumphantly coming back from an injury, your 2017 Leger Crankworx champion, Brett Rheeder. So you can never underestimate the passion of freeride mountain biking fans. Much of the talk following Leger was, well, Testa's run. You know, they obviously, a lot of people had a lot of opinions about it.
Absolutely. Testa's run was contested, and I know you and I, that was one run that really stood out for us. We were absolutely excited at the end and then kind of confused when we got the score. So let's take a look back at what that run consisted of. It was a flat drop backflip at the start, a little mess on the 360 there, so maybe that's what the judges were looking at, but some of these tricks that you just need to have in 2017, a Quark 720, a backflip tail up, and then getting very creative with this backflip no-footed can on the cannon log. And you know what, the way he ended this run, Pat, is what got the crowd absolutely on their feet. After seeing Matt Jones crash on the double flip, Torquato Testa absolutely stomped his version of it. And at that point, we had chicken skin on our hands.
Well, it was the talk of the water cooler the next day on this Torquato Testa. Definitely a definitive moment. Let's hear from head judge with Cam McCall.
So, Paul, walk us through your logic for scoring Torquato's run last week in Leger the way you did. We were kind of buzzing after that run and a little bit surprised to see his score fall somewhere in the 60s.
Yeah, sure. Actually, sometimes the buzz does happen when a trick like a double backflip finishes in the finish, and everyone's like, wow, that was the craziest finish, awesome trick. But we take the whole run from top to bottom, and there were some parts of his run that actually were basic backflips and basic 360s. And at this level, you pretty much got to be comboing every feature on top of that. So we look at the whole run from start to finish, and yes, he did have a couple of bangers, but he also had a couple of basic tricks. So
I guess there's no room for filler anymore in 2017, it sounds like.
Oh, well, I think it's these guys that are doing that. They're pushing themselves to, there is no filler.
It's crazy what we're seeing.
Back-to-back trick, and not only trick, combo, combo. And just from today's practice, we just saw some stuff that is we might not have even seen before.
Perfect. Well, thanks for the insight, Paul.
No problem.
So great to hear from head judge Paul Rack on that. As we pointed out, was definitely the talk of the water cooler the next day, and it teaches us just how much stuff is going on in these runs, and so much to take in, and especially when you talk about the season. Let's take a closer look at the Crankworx format.
We have a 4-stop world tour this year. We kicked things off down in New Zealand. Last week we were in Leger, France, and here we are now in Innsbruck, Austria. The way the competition works, we've got 18 of the top riders in the world. Each of them gets 2 runs with their highest scoring run counting toward their ranking at the end of the day.
Now you mentioned the 4 stops. It's all about the stamina, the season, and the judges, what are they looking for?
Well, they're looking for things like fluidity, style, amplitude, trick difficulty, and variety.
And after the 4 stops throughout the season, the rider with the top overall finish, $25,000 goes to him. If you win 3 of the 4 stops, 25 grand. So we are about to get underway live here at Crankworx Innsbruck. Right now, let's check in with Tina Dixon.
Well, you guys have been talking about it in the broadcast already. One rider that has been really making a statement this year is Emil Johansson. Now, a quick recap. Last year at Joyride, 4th place. He moves on to Rotorua and gets a 3rd place. Then at Leger, less than a week ago, he got a 2nd place. So mathematics would tell you that today would be a first. But it doesn't always happen like that. We know that. But it definitely could for someone like Emil. But one thing to point out, when a rider is relatively unknown, there's not a lot of pressure. There's no expectations. But once you start posting those results, there's a different amount of pressure. Everyone starts to look at you. And the question remains for today, can Emil block out all of that noise and do what he does best, and that's ride his bike? Pat.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. Interesting and a very, very good point when we talk about Emil Johansson in terms of that now having that bullseye on the back, so to speak.
Yeah, his climb to the top is unlike anything we've ever seen before. And like she said, it doesn't take a mathematician to look at that pattern and hint at what might be next, a 4th, a 3rd, a 2nd, and here we are, another event.
Well, I think we know if you do the math, the next stop is 1st place on the podium. Let's take a closer look at this incredible course here in Innsbruck.
With this being our first year in Innsbruck, we have a brand new fresh slopestyle course, starting out with a flat drop, about a 1-to-1 ratio on this, leaving the door open for a lot of tricks. The second feature is a dirt-to-dirt trick jump, different than the wood-to-dirt features that all the riders practice on. So it's going to be interesting to see who can adapt big tricks to that feature. Now this, we call it a cannon log. It has no radius on the transition, just a log sticking out of the ground. Now the 4-pack this week, the jumps are hipped. A left hip on the first jump, a right hip on the second jump. What that means is the takeoff is offset from the landing. So for those rotational tricks, we're gonna see who can adapt and overspin, underspin accordingly. Now this is a whale tail, a step up into a wooden pre-built feature into a step down out. Tricking the step down is more difficult than tricking the jumps that are step ups. Like the last feature on the course, the money booter. This is where you really dump out the bag of tricks to finish your run.
Such an incredible course, as I pointed out, and the riders are loving it. It's technical, it's progressive, it's creative, and it really allows these riders to step up and show where the sport is at this point. And we expect a show for you today. So definitely want to sit tight. Earlier in the week, we had a chance to hear from the riders, as well as I believe Cam jumped on board, to how they tackle such a creative course.
So with this being the first year we have this contest in Innsbruck, it's a brand new course, fresh dirt. It puts the riders in an interesting situation, deciding who's gonna drop in first and test it out.
Tom Hay, the guy who built this course, has already ridden it all, which is amazing. To be able to build the course and test it and make sure it works good for the riders is pretty important. So we're gonna watch Tom drop in like right now.
I think the most important thing for the riders when they show up, somebody's ridden the course, so it's not a mystery. We could just tell them how it rides, if they've got a break, or hopefully they don't.
It's like having, you know, like a dad out here, you know? No, it's really helpful because it eliminates a lot of the guesswork. Usually it's always Russians that go first, but there's no Russians here, so I don't know, maybe this guy, the American Russian.
It's just whoever feels most ready that day, and yeah, it changes. Who Guinea's usually?
Rheeder's usually pretty keen.
Torquato
loves it. He's got his pads on at 7 in the morning.
I think we want to play paper or scissors.
Cara, bora bicho fácil.
Ok, vai. Ciao. It's not good. I will see.
That's why guinea pigging the course and doing it first is kind of scary.
I expected the kicker more kicky while it's really mellow, so I pushed like too much. The speeds are super different from where we train usually because the jumps are bigger and we need to get in use with this course.
Some people brake a lot, some people pedal a lot. You just gotta know how you do it yourself, and then you take tips from each other.
If you kind of remember how fast you have to go, or like how big are the jumps, I think you can just go for it until you case, or until you go too far, or until you cannot make it to the next jump.
So we are just minutes away, ladies and gentlemen, letting the best free riders in the world take to this course. They're up top. And when we return to Crankworx Innsbruck, presented by Kenda, we'll get our first rider out of the gate. Stay with us. Much more to come as we continue here from Austria. A beautiful day here today in Innsbruck as we get ready for the first runs of two. It is Crankworx Innsbruck presented by Kenda. 2 runs, best run counts as we look at Jakub Vencl out of Czech Republic. And he is the wild card. He has style and he has speed, it turns out, Cam.
Yeah, if you've been following the Crankworx World Tour the last 2 seasons, you absolutely know the name Jakub Vencl, but you would associate that name with the discipline called speed and style. He kind of solidified himself as the man to beat with a win in Whistler last year to finish the season, a win in Rotorua this year to start the season. And last week in Leger, it was more of the same, going up against guys like Darrell Brown, who won in Leger 2 events ago. Jakub showing, you know what, I'm the new guy to beat, and he won again, making it a few events in a row where he was the man. But if you've been following slopestyle for years and years, you knew Jakub before his rise to stardom in speed and style. He fell off the tour, but you know what? He clawed his way back by getting points at some lower level events, and he's back on the tour here in 2017, right now in Innsbruck.
A great story with Vencl. Re-earned his way back on with the wild card by a 4th place finish at 26 tricks just down the road in Leogang, as he takes a breath, sinks it, lets it sit in just how heavy this moment can be. Can definitely put the run that we've seen in the past. He's put so much work into it. Finished just outside the podium, as I mentioned, at 26 tricks. So trying to find that rhythm. Here we go, our first rider of 18. You can hear the fans.
Well, Jakub's such a strong competitor. It's pretty often you see riders fall off of the slopestyle world tour at the highest level, the Crankworx events, but it's not very often you see them earn their way back. So it's exciting to see him dropping in here.
It's so cool to see that versatility too, not just focused on one discipline aspect of mountain biking. The 27-year-old out of Prague, trying to ease the nerves here. Never easy being the first one out of the gate.
Well, it's also tough when you're doing multiple events, multiple disciplines at the same event. So he's been splitting his time this week between speed and style. A little bit of bad luck for him earlier on in the week. So now he's able to focus all his attention on this run right here.
So you'll see too, we're having these just slight puffs of wind throughout. We'll be keeping a close eye on the wind as here we go. Jakub Vencl, run number 1.
A flat drop backflip to start things off for Jakub Vencl. Looks like he missed the hands, but still 360 that dirt-to-dirt feature. Now in speed and style, you only have to choose 2 tricks, but you have to be way more versatile in slopestyle with 7 trickable features. You got to be creative with tricks like that backflip toboggan, putting the hand on the seat, a 360 downside tail up into the whale tail. He's really cranking things up here toward the finish. Ending his run with a backflip tail whip, slight pedal bobble, but a good run to start our event.
Besides the foot slip, it's great to see a clean full pull from our first competitor, Jakub Vencl. A clean run in the books.
You could tell he had some nerves at the top. I know we have some flags on course, but luckily they're looking pretty calm right now, so I think he was kind of waiting for the wind to subside.
And as we pointed out, never easy to be that first rider out of the gate, but he definitely turned it on when he needed to.
Well, really, a trick that you don't see in speed and style, but now he's back in the big show doing that flat drop backflip. That 360 tuck no hander is a trick that he's been doing in speed and style, not getting the hands off here in this first run, but making up for it with that 360 downside tail up into the whale tail. Very high consequence maneuver.
Scores coming in for the Czech rider. And 53.33, so he'll sit on top, but expect scores to just keep inching their way up as we go down the roster of riders. 18 riders, the best in the world. 2 runs, best run counts, and such a great angle of this course. And it really shows you that some of the angles there on the 2 hips as you come out of that cannon.
Yeah, it's really cool to have hips in a slopestyle line, but something we haven't talked about yet either is the quality of the dirt here, kind of reminiscent to our first stop this season in Rotorua. Same course designers and builders, and they scored on some nice dirt here in Innsbruck.
Tom Hayes having some good luck with consistency of dirt.
Yeah, all the riders loving his courses. It's great what he comes up with. Very creative designer as well as a talented builder along with his crew.
We're a 20-year-old out of Hurricane, Utah, originally Cleveland, Ohio. Had the dream of moving out westward towards the Rampage site. Claims to have a knack for gauging speed on new jumps, and that's exactly what you want when you jump onto a new course like this where there's no home court advantage.
And I think that can be credited to where he lives now, living out in the deserts of Utah. Definitely makes you a very well-rounded rider. The terrain there is so challenging. So a fast plant 360 to start things off, a flat spin 360 on the first jump there, a truck driver 360 bar spin on the log. So we've seen Reed very, very smooth all season. And there's something we haven't seen yet from him is a 360 one-footed table, a front flip into the whale tail. He needs one more big trick. A Quark 720, can he pull it around? He does!
Reed Boggs.
That is exactly what he needed to do on that last jump.
Pulls out a massive marquee maneuver, and that leaves such an indelible mark.
Look at that look on his face. Yeah. I feel like he was almost thinking upside down that the rotation might not be fast enough. Looks like he got a haircut between last week and now. All right, so watch his foot. He puts his foot down on the drop, uses that to push off and initiate that 360. Definitely more points awarded for that than leaving the foot on the pedal. It's a very creative variation of the 360 drop. A 360 bar spin on the cannon, we call that a truck driver, and then backflip bar spin on the hip. You have to lean off the side of your bike to be able to compensate for the fact that the lip and landing are offset. But the front flip, he needed to do something that was a variation different than backflips and 360s, so that's what he did with that front flip. But this Quark 720, there was a moment there, Pat, where I didn't think he was going to pull that around.
Definitely found the speed, the style, and the technique. The rider that was the first alternate in New Zealand is starting to find his flow in 2017 as scores coming in. And for Reed Boggs, a 70. So we have a new leader.
That is huge for Reed Boggs. Great to see. You know, coming into this event, we knew he needed to push it and kind of scare himself a little bit. He did exactly that.
And there is Matt Jones, the 22-year-old out of Great Britain. Great sense of humor, and you would need a good sense of humor when you talk about the saga of suffering mishaps he has had this season.
You know, I don't like to talk about luck in slopestyle because it's mostly hard work, and he did all that hard work to earn himself a spot into Joyride last year. He won a huge contest on the Gold Series to make his way there. He had a great run going, but over-rotating and getting sideways on that 720 took him out of the event. And then in New Zealand, he broke his wrist the night right before the event. And then just last week, things were looking good. Going top to bottom on a run, and then on the last jump, after 99% of a great run in the bag, over-rotating that double backflip. This kid can't catch a break, and in the second run, blowing out a tire on the second feature, he still hasn't completed a Crankworx slopestyle run.
So the question is, can he catch a break? Because you know that he has all the skills to land on top of the podium, and he is a rider's favorite out there. Here we go. Matt Jones, run number 1.
So looking for a full run, top to bottom right now, a flat drop flip to start things off, a 360 table. One thing about this kid is his fluidity. For a guy who's relatively new to the scene, he has such great composure. A backflip tuck no-hander on the log, 360 tuck no-hander on the first jump, and a 720. That's the trick that took him out of Whistler last year, and he stomped it here. Can he hold on? Great extension, one last trick. A double backflip, can he land it? Oh, not again!
And you saw him chopping wood, trying to crank his way up on that last hit.
This just seems like a bad dream for Matt Jones. How is this possible? I mean, we see it. He has everything he needs. We just never get to see his score because of these little things that keep happening every single event.
And talk about redemption, being able to come back almost on an identical feature.
At this point, I don't know about you, Pat, but I am chewing on my fingernails. The run is so perfect. He did not try this 720 in practice, and I was thinking about how similar this jump is to the one that he crashed on in Whistler, wondering if he was going to go for it. Perfect execution. I knew he was going to try the double backflip on this last jump. He hadn't done it in practice, but you could tell by the way he was popping his straight flips. Came up a little bit short out of the whale tail, had to grab some pedals, and came up slightly short on that double flip. You know, if he can get back up there for run 2, I know he can fix that and finally stomp a run here at Crankworx.
So disappointment, obviously, for Matt Jones, but the good news is, well, he'll find a little hope in run number 2. Remember, it is the best run that counts, so a chance for Matt Jones to come back and find some final redemption and find his way to the podium in the second run. So disappointment once again for Jones. We'll have to see how this story continues here today. So fans starting to fill in here alongside the slopestyle course. There you see Ryan Nyquist talking with him earlier. He's got some creative stuff planned, and we don't want to give away too much, but
in this game, you have to think outside the box, and you know, these guys are coming up with some crazy ideas these days. So last week in Leger, if you think back to the run from Nico Scholze, kind of similar to Matt Jones, it was all going great until the last jump. This trick that he's famous for, huge execution on that backflip Superman. We call it a tsunami backflip. You get to eye up your landing really late on this one, and when you saw it, he was over-rotated, missed the feet on the pedals, went straight to flat, his entire back is raw with scabs, yet just a week later, he's back on top of this starting tower.
Cam, I know you don't like to be over the top, but yeah, you described this scab as almost the width of the Grand Canyon. It's this big stripe down his back.
And you know, that can't feel good to be contorting yourself into these super difficult tricks that we see in 2017 with just an entire scab for a back piece.
And obviously when you have a trick like that you're known for, people are always expecting it, but you have to back it up.
There's that scab, take a look.
It's healed up nicely, I might say.
Yeah, it's still a little gooey, I'd say.
So Nico's story is interesting. He's been paving the way on the lower circuits for so many years, and it's great to see him find his rhythm here.
Well, here goes Nico Scholze. On this tour, you not only have to do the tricks that you're known for, the ones that set you apart from the rest of the field, but you have to do, wow, there's a unique trick, a backflip heel clicker. You don't see that on a mountain bike very often, a trick that comes from freestyle motocross. Managing not to over-rotate on that hip, that's always a thing that's challenging when you're doing 360 variations on hips. And so we're hoping to see that huge execution on the backflip Superman on the last jump, really conquer the demon. Oh, a backflip tail up today. Perfect run.
So mixing it up, relying on just a big bag of tricks.
Well, that's good to see because you usually see him lean on that backflip Superman, but to completely come at this with a different game plan is nice to show some versatility.
Would you speculate maybe potentially kind of laying the groundwork for run number 2?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, these riders are very strategic, and it's important to get one in the bag, but that right there was a fantastic run. Let's take a look back at some slow-mo replays. That backflip heel clicker, I can only imagine would score very high, for the reason that it's very unique. You don't see any other rider in the field doing that. That's something you would come to expect from a guy like Szymon Godziek. So it's cool to see that Nico Scholze is also thinking way outside the box. Now this backflip bar spin on a hip jump, so you have to lean off to the side to be able to line up to the landing. And you know, if we're gonna go in slow motion to look at the execution, I don't remember any pedal bobbles. It sure seemed like he was connecting with all the landings. That should be a good score, Pat.
Yeah, judges obviously looking for that cleanliness throughout, linkage. Definitely an emphasis on progression and the technical merits of a run. And you can't say enough about the fans here in Europe. They've been so supportive coming out to the events. As we look at the scores coming in for Nico Scholze, a 59, good enough for second place. So he's gonna be thinking about what he can add to that run. He's thinking, I sent it on that last hit, but as we heard earlier, it takes a full pull, and every single feature needs to be utilized. And there's the Italian, Diego Caverzasi. Interesting story about Diego. For a little more on that, let's check in with Tina Dixon.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, they say if you have a goal, write it down, and your chances of accomplishing it are much better. And that's exactly what Diego Caverzasi does. In fact, he puts his runs into his iPhone. And, you know, we're always traveling with our iPhone. So he's constantly looking at his runs, what he wants to do. In fact, he even shares it with the judges, talks to them to get their thoughts. So Diego, a very goal-oriented guy, and he's up next. Let's see if it pays off.
Goals definitely do pay off. All that time I thought, you know, they were updating their Facebook, but
yeah.
no. I'm just creating some hammers that I'm going to be throwing down.
Strategizing.
Yeah, that is so cool. The privateer, we talked about him in Leger, not having that big sponsor, and to be at the level of his riding and not to have a major sponsor, unbelievable. But watch the level that he attacks this course.
Oh, he's right on the verge of a huge breakout. Already some big wins on the lower level events, but on the Crankworx Tour, we've yet to see him on the podium. This guy works in between events at a bike shop, commuting to work on his free time. Oh, backflip tail getting hung up. Oh, wow.
So Diego, obviously you saw how he got caught up. It's one of those things that you just dread. Was not able, I should say, to get away. Medical staff tending to him right now, but that's a situation where you see that. You could tell that he wanted to move away from the bike.
Yeah, well, we talk about how difficult it is to do some of those tricks on the hip jumps, but luckily we've got great medical personnel. It's taking a breather right now, but let's take a slow-mo replay peek at what happened. Now this jump is slightly hip to the right. He's looking for a backflip tail up. He gets hung up with his leg underneath the bike, which kind of catapults him to the flat bottom. You know, when you know you're gonna crash, all you're trying to do is get separated from the bike and not get tied up in it, but that was basically the perfect example of getting hung up in the frame. Looks like he's about ready to stand up, Pat.
I'm in disbelief at this point. Wow. And that is Italian tough right there. Incredible. So Diego Caverzasi takes one of the more horrific falls that we've seen here all week and able to get up. So hopefully he'll get the clear for medical and he'll come back and run number 2. I mean,
I hope so.
Yeah.
That was such a violent crash, but sometimes they stay on the ground for a long time because the wind's knocked out of him. Looks like he's up and moving around great, so I hope we get to see him in run number 2.
Yeah, and Rheeder was coming off that wrist injury, and you hope that he can stave off the impact of some of these crashes. We talk about the Crankworx Slopestyle World Tour standings. Emil Johansson on top. Incredible story of Ryan Nyquist in second, and Torquato Testa, the other Italian, rounding out the top 3.
And the way that's scored, you're looking at those scores next to the riders' names. It's actually their top run score from each event added up. So after 4 events, it'll be every run score added up.
And I failed to get to in 4th in the overall standings is Anthony Messere, and his ability to remain relevant. We keep hammering the point home, but he's 21 years old, and we call that a grizzled veteran because he started so young, but he has remained relevant all those years.
And, you know, we talk about how hard it is to earn an invitation to these events. It's equally as hard to stay on tour. And since he broke out on the scene at the young age of 15, he's been doing exactly that. A 360 bar spin, looping out on the cannon.
Disappointment for Anthony as well.
So these days, a kid we know for being consistent, having a bobble and run number 1, putting himself in that uncomfortable situation of having only one more chance at posting a score.
Well, we saw him have problems in practice, and unfortunately problems in his first run or 2. Remember, it is best run that counts. For a little more information on the tires here in Innsbruck, let's check in with Tina Dixon.
So here at Crankworx this weekend, we also have the downhill event going on, and with each mountain bike discipline, it all comes with its own set of gear. So today we're going to talk tires. Take a look at this. This is your downhill tire. This is what it looks like. It's your Kenda Hellcat, and you can see it's got that big block pattern, that tall tread. It's wider, and it's got relatively lower tire pressure than your slopestyle tire, and this is what that looks like. It's a little bit more narrow, less tread. You want this tire pressure to be way higher, and also you want it to be lighter so you can throw the bike around and do those tricks. And guys, here's another look. You can see the comparison. And there you go. That is your Crankworx Tires 101.
Well, thanks a lot, Tina. Yeah, there's we talk about traction. Would you say that's it's all about traction, or no traction for that matter?
Yeah, in slopestyle, increasingly it's less about traction because there aren't too many corners. It's more about cutting away that rolling resistance and making sure that you can run really high pressure and carry speed through those transitions in between features.
This is a rider who is having a breakout moment in the European leg of Crankworx. Szymon Godziek out of Poland, 3rd in Leger. You were lucky enough to jump on board and kind of tailgate, so to speak, on course. Let's take a look at that.
Top of the brand new Crankworx Innsbruck Slopestyle course with this guy, a guy who became a dad 8 weeks ago and got your first Crankworx Slopestyle podium 1 week ago. I'm gonna follow you down this course, bud. You like it?
Let's have a quick one.
Okay, let's have a quick one. All right, it starts out with a flat drop. There's some walls, look to the side. You got walls on either side, so don't transfer. And classic dirt-to-dirt booter, kind of cool, bringing it back to the old school. And then this cannon log into a hip to the left and a hip to the right. Pretty rad having hips on a Crankworx Slopestyle course. Oh, 0.7, yeah, Simon! And if you can do tricks like that on a hip, you're such a rad dude. So a whale tail. Then this jump's kind of similar to the 3rd jump in Rotorua. Huge trick booter. Front flip for Simon. Bad ass, dude. So sick, Simon.
Great perspective there. Thank you, Cam. Truly enjoyed that. Hope everyone watching around the world as we get ready for Szymon Godziek, his first of 2 runs. Mentioned he got the 3rd in Leger. Can he keep this momentum going on the European leg? Here we go. Godziek.
I know he can. He's got such unique tricks. A 360 bar spin off the start tower. And look at that. Nobody else in the field is getting an extension on a double grab Superman. A backflip one-footed can-can on the log. There's that perfect execution of the 360 table. Now this guy has such amazing choices and tricks, always unique A double bar spin up into the whale tail. Backflip bar spin down. Let's see what he has to finish off this run. A front flip bar spin. Wow, right on for Szymon Godziek.
If there was any question, could Godziek continue with the rhythm and the form that he had in Leger? He just answered. What a run.
I am such a big fan of this guy's approach to slopestyle. Going against the norm a little bit. You don't see too many riders doing tricks that don't have a rotation in them anymore. But that second jump, the double grab Superman, doing it on a day when there has been gusts of wind. Look at this, putting both hands on the seat and completely extending the entire body behind the bike. You know what, that's gonna get great points in the variety category on the judges' scorecard.
Well, it's a rider that's battled consistency in the past, but he is riding with such confidence right now.
But look how high he pops that Cork 720. That's a trick that you will see a lot of the athletes doing in this competition. But for every trick that Szymon Godziek chooses, he has his own take on the execution, the amplitude, the extension. Those are all strengths of this rider.
Well, we talked about it in Leger. Maybe his trick repertoire may be too deep because he can't decide, you know, what trick to do on what feature.
And he's getting way better at that. Look at this.
Scores coming in.
Whoa!
And 86! Szymon Godziek catapults to the top spot. Right now, let's check in with Tina Dixon.
Szymon already bumping up into those 80s. You have your own take on runs, especially that Superman double seat grab. How do you look at this run?
I was super stressed about the wind, you know, because when it's windy from the side, I cannot do my Supermans. So I was waiting for the wind. Luckily, it wasn't too bad and I could pull it.
You know, we go back to Leger and you did that first run and you got that huge score and you had a second run, but you just kind of took it easy on there. Are we going to see something bigger the second run here?
Yes, this time I want to send it in my second run.
There you guys go.
Thank you, Tina. That is good news for the fans watching here and worldwide. He's going to send it in run number 2. I'd love to see what he's going to add to that, because that run alone is definitely highlight worthy as we look at our current standings, still in the midst of the first of 2 runs where best run counts. Szymon Godziek, the rider out of Poland, following a 3rd place finish in Leger, is looking in good form here to find another visit to the podium.
And something else to note, you were talking about Reed Boggs, how he spends time and he's in Utah and he's good at judging speed. On a day like today where a lot of riders are crashing, he's still sitting in that 2nd place spot.
So there'll be a lot of talk throughout the broadcast. At every Crankworx, 4 stops, there's multiple disciplines. We have pump track, we have definitely, you got
speed and style.
Speed and style, which brings us to our next rider, winner of the Mons Royale, dual speed and style this week. And it's interesting when you have to do double duty. That's some stamina in itself.
Well, especially when the event gets moved a day earlier.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's been trying to plan his time intelligently so that he has enough practice for slopestyle, but definitely tough when you're a well-rounded rider like Thomas Lemoine putting all that on your plate at the same time.
Also with pump track skills as he takes off, run number 1.
Ooh, good combo on that second feature, a backflip bar spin to tuck no-hander. Now, take a look in between features. This is something we always like to point out with this rider. Look at that, 360 tuck no-hander to bar spin. He's always going really high, but never pedaling in between features. Huge combos, a bar spin to tuck no-hander into the whale tail, a 360 double bar spin down, and 1 last jump. Backflip, double tail it! Oh, straight to flat, but he lands it! Oh,
Lemoine links it.
That was
beautifully.
Huge.
Wow.
The speed he carried into that last jump to land completely flat with that backflip double tail whip.
He even looks surprised.
He packed so much into that run. It's a necessity to review it in slow motion.
Well, he grabbed a 5th in Rotorua this season, and this would be great validation to work his way back up.
Oh, this was a work of art. Let's take a look back. He's approaching the cannon feature. There's a 360 inward table. Nice style, and here come the combinations. 360 inward table to bar spin, just progressively ramping up the intensity. A bar spin to tuck no-hander in with a 360, 2 bar spins on the way down. A double truck driver not taking a pedal, but yet somehow finding so much speed that he can do a backflip double tail up and completely overshoot the landing. Oh, this is gonna be a great angle. Watch that back foot push off of the back pedal, making sure not to rotate the cranks. At this point, his body turns more into a 360 as he's watching for that second tail to come around. The front foot meets the pedal, the back foot joins the party, and look at this. There goes the landing, Pat.
No,
all the way to the bottom, still doesn't blow his feet.
He's landing downtown Innsbruck in the skate park.
I think he surprised himself on that one.
And just the wherewithal, the air awareness to catch so late and to overshoot and able to stick the landing. And scored a beat in 86, held by Godziek 86. A new leader at 89.33. A personal best for Lemoine.
That's about as close to the 90s as you can get.
And this is what we always hope to see. Clean first runs, full pulls, and each rider tapping into that extra gear that we know they all have.
Yeah, we're starting to get into the part of the lineup where the riders are really taking it to the next level and feeling this course.
So, but right now, all eyes should be affixed to this incredible course that Tom Hay put together for these riders as we are still in the midst of the first of 2 runs. And this is the rider that so many people have been talking about, put down a blistering run in Leger, 3rd in the overall standings, despite not getting the finish that he wanted. We know that all the goods are there. He just needs to really trick each feature.
I really like the open door policy the judges have with the riders these days. I witnessed a conversation with Torquato and the judges just saying, you know what, why didn't I get scored well last week? So he knows what he needs to fix here. Getting good tabletop on that 360. A backflip tail up over the hip, lining up nicely to the landing. And there we go. He had just a straight 360 last week, but there we go. Combos in and out of the whale tail, and a double flip at the bottom.
No!
Oh, over rotating.
And I think that was testament, though, that we're seeing a new Torquato Testa starting to add everything on each of those features.
Well, we did that analysis of the judging last week, and the way he rode that run right there was definitely indicative of the fact that he's listening to the judges. He's doing more difficult combos on the smaller features, still trying to land with that double flip. That's what he stomped last week, but over-rotating here today.
Hopefully the 23-year-old Italian didn't slam too hard on that. Remember, a second at this year's Rotorua stop.
So he went real long on the flat flip. If you remember back, he did not get a variation on the back flip on the second feature, that dirt-to-dirt long jump. But here, a 360 bar spin on the cannon. And then basically needed to get the table into that 360 because we heard from Paul Rack, our head judge, that they're docking you if you don't have a variation on those rotations. So into the whale tail. Tuck no hander to bar spin, exactly what he needed to do. And a backflip no-footed can out, unique, only guy in the field doing that. This double flip, right now realizing that he pulled too hard. You know what, he didn't try it in practice either, so Matt Jones and Torquato Testa learning what it's like to double flip this jump in their run.
And for the neophytes out there, the layman's, how more difficult is it hucking on that, the double flip versus anything else?
It's really hard to judge the rotation. You could see at the tail end of that clip, his rear wheel was locked up. Once he spotted the landing, he knew he needed to grab that rear brake and try to avoid a crash, but it wasn't enough.
So I think the face says it all. Torquato Testa not happy with that, but a slight smile as he thinks ahead to run number 2. Still a chance for the Italian to climb back. Lemoine on top with that 89.33. Szymon Godziek in second, and Reed Boggs out of Hurricane, Utah in 3rd place, but we expect a lot of shuffling, not just on the first runs, but the second runs, where it's best run that counts. Started in BMX, made the switch to mountain bikes in 2008. Mehdi Gani, 28 years old, one of the veterans of the sport. Just missed the top 5, 6th place finish in Leger. But he's a rider that you continually hear the discussion, when's his breakout moment, when he's gonna have his event that he deserves.
Yeah, we're always kind of wondering, is this guy going to take it to the next level, find himself on the podium, or is he going to play the consistency card? I mean, he has such great execution and big amplitude on that front flip tuck no-hander. Ooh, a backflip tuck no-hander on the cannon, a trick that's going to score high on that particular feature. Oh, Quirk 720, a little short on the landing. Can he make it happen? A backflip double bar spin. Wow, is he ever maintaining his focus? Almost bobbling the tail up in, a backflip bar spin out, just holding on to this run. Front flip, did he get the bar spin, Pat? Wow, front flip combo on the last jump.
So focused, as you pointed out. You could almost tell from here, laser precision.
Now, a rider with less experience would have thrown this run away way high up on the course, but staying focused, you can't rattle this guy.
So Mehdi Gani showing his resolve here in the first of 2 runs. Incredible percentage of full pulls.
Okay, so this last feature, wondering if he got the bar spin. It looks like he started, but then realized he needed to put his hand back on and prepare for landing. Now we get a real slow motion look. Look at him lock up his rear wheel on the lip. As he's starting to throw the bar spin, he took a peek at the landing. That is crazy to be able to see that in slow motion. He realized that he needed to open up, slow down the rotation, prepare for landing. If he threw the bar spin, he wouldn't have been prepared to land at that point. He's gonna approach that a little bit differently in run 2.
Incredible skill set, knowing everything that's going on around you and having the wherewithal to know your surroundings, slowing it up perfectly as Mehdi Gani waiting for his first of 2 run scores. And you can see this is where it really gets difficult. I mean, judges have such a difficult job really quantifying these runs, but when you have so many riders with so many good runs, it makes it that much harder to find that placing. And that's really what it's about. Mehdi Gani, 78.33, moves into 3rd place.
That just goes to show the level he's on, even missing a variation. You know, it's still a front flip in the context of that entire run. Very well-rounded, great variety.
So our next rider up, the humble journeyman, I call him. I call him Hope on 2 wheels as well. 38 years old, you talk about it, father of 3, Ryan Nyquist, a legend in BMX, made the switch to mountain biking. Just 2-3 years ago, had to work his way onto the tour and earn his right to be here. Got a 5th in Leger, and the big story with him, he's 2nd in the overall. Here we go, Ryan Nyquist.
Well, it's what he's done his entire career on a BMX bike, is to think outside of the box, be unique, and he's always been good at overall point series. So right now, sitting in 2nd place, a 720 over spinning on that left hip, a backflip, suicide to bar spin. Ooh. Whoa! Can he carry speed? He's not going to have enough to get into that whale tail.
Just overshot landing, ends the run early for Nyquist.
I think
we saw what was about to happen with that run. He was definitely starting to build his way up.
And up into that whale tail is where we were going to really see stuff getting weird. He's been doing some very creative tricks, stuff that nobody else is doing into that whale tail. So hopefully we'll see that in the 2nd run.
It's another great thing it's been to watch this season is just the camaraderie and the relationship between Ryan and the younger riders. He's kind of an Obi-Wan to these guys.
20 years older than the youngest rider in the field, absolutely Obi-Wan status. So a 360 bar spin on that cannon. And this 720, he has to rotate more than 720 degrees because the angle of the landing is to the left and he's spinning to the left. But 720 is a Ryan Nyquist staple, a trick he's been doing his entire career. Here's where he went long. The backflip suicide to bar spin, missing the landing. And when that happens, we talk about carrying speed and generating speed. If you miss all of the landing, there's nothing to pump against. You don't have that transition at the bottom to generate speed against, and you're not gonna have enough speed to make it up into that whale tail, and he knew it.
So we'll look towards 2nd run for Ryan Nyquist to see what he can deliver on the 2nd half of that run where best run counts here at Crankworx Innsbruck, presented by Kenda. So a 29.33, a throwaway for Nyquist, which leads us to our next rider, Logan Peat, the 27-year-old. He has definitely paid the price to ride at the level of progression. It usually comes, unfortunately, with injury.
The injuries come with the sport. It's kind of bound to happen. It seems like every competitor has a big injury or two. Some guys are lucky to kind of avoid them with some smaller stuff, but it's common that everyone takes a good digger.
So injuries aside, here's the one thing you'll keep hearing over and over when we talk about Logan Peat is the style, and maybe you could help just better explain what is it specifically that he emulates that everyone loves, the riders, the fans?
It's style, but it's also bike control. He's got these tricks that he can do both directions, making them look so smooth. And in between features, I'm a big fan of this kid for so many reasons. You watch how his feet go straight to the pedals. There's not a lot of corners on slopestyle courses these days, but if you go online, you look at some of his web video projects, watching this kid corner is so entertaining.
On a current wind hold right now, we are expecting weather moving in, but fingers crossed as conditions for the moment look good, and Logan, right, he's in on it.
Taking a pedal there, huge amplitude on that flip after the opposite 360 to start things off. Now into the cannon. We're gonna take a look at this execution, watch him grab his bars and then just tuck into the landing. An opposite 360 bar spin, making everything look so easy. A backflip bar spin on the hip, tail up in. Now Logan Peat needs something big here on this last jump. He's going for the 720. Oh, just perfect. That's what we're talking about.
Textbook. 7 on the last kicker. And Logan Peat has yet to find his way to the podium here at Crankworx. It's staggering when you hear that stat, but it's actually true.
So close, so many times. A whole lot of fourth places on his record books. Could today be the day? Now, big amplitude on that backflip, so you know that'll score high for the amplitude category, but just a backflip these days typically isn't cutting it, but having a well-balanced run does. A 360 bar spin his regular direction, followed it up with a 360 bar spin his unnatural direction, spinning his uncomfortable way, a tail up in, an unnatural 360 down. Again, kind of hard to tell sometimes which way is regular, which way is opposite, because he makes it look so effortless. But I love the 720 on the bottom. A lot of riders doing the Cork 720, but Logan Peat going for the classic upright, sometimes harder. And maybe that's the reason why you don't see a lot of riders doing it, but keeping his bars turning into the rotation the entire time, taking a peek at the landing after 360, dropping that chin to the shoulder to finish up all 720 degrees of rotation.
So an incredible start to that, which we just got the tail end.
Yeah, that opposite 360 to start. The only thing that's going to hurt him is not getting a variation on that backflip on the second jump.
So interesting, Logan Peat, you hear a lot of riders when they come to these Crankworx events, kind of, not, I wouldn't say scared, but you know, intimidated on some of the bigger features. But when you consider the size of the features that he practices on at home, it's almost child's play for him.
Yeah, the way he trains is by riding with the man, Brandon Semenuk, and that's one of the only places in the world that has features that are similar to what you would see on the Crankworx World Tour.
So judges deliberating right now, score to beat an 89.33. A score's coming in 73. Logan Peat just outside of the top 3.
There's that number again, 4 right there.
Yeah. So the free ride philosopher, Tommy G, 23 years old, out of Belgium. 4th place in Leger, was definitely showing that he's back in his true form, and showing the confidence that we saw pre-injury. So it's great to see him back.
And he had to battle to get to that point. A lot of tough crashes in practice for him last week in Leger. Somehow managed to do a great final run. A double tail up there in the second jump. I'm really hoping we're gonna see him try something on this last jump. But let's enjoy the middle section. An opposite 360 one-footed table. Can you believe that's opposite? 360 triple bar spin and a tail up. Oh, looking for more variations on that, but one last jump. He's going for it. The cash roll. Perfect.
Sticks it.
Yes.
We've talked about the cash roll being his nemesis, and clears that hurdle cleanly. Incredible.
This is the payoff for all the hard work. The cash roll is a trick that broke his ankle in the off season. It's a trick that caused him a big crash in practice last week. He fought back to get a good run last week. More healed up now, 6 days later. And let's take a look back at this run. It was an opposite 360 down, a double tail up on that jump, and a very difficult trick to do on a jump that has crosswind right now. 360 tuck no hander on the cannon log, and then 360 one-footed table is opposite direction, linking it in to a 360 with 3 bar spins. We call that a triple truck driver. Making sure to trick every single feature, getting that tail up. He did the 360 bar spin. He was looking for a tuck no hander here, but probably in the back of his mind thinking about the cash roll. This is the trick he's been thinking about for months and months, finally throwing it into a slopestyle run. And of course, if Thomas Genon has a new trick, he makes it look just as good, if not better, than anybody who's been doing it for years.
And the validation it must feel to get that monkey off your back, a trick that brought you down, kept you off the bike for 3 months. He said in that time it really gave him the perspective he needed to move forward with his riding. Score coming in 82 will put Genon into 3rd place. Let's send it down to Tina Dixon.
Thanks, guys. Well, yeah, you're into 3rd place right now, but let's talk about that final trick because that was the highlight, and it's a trick that you've been working on for so long. To land it in a run, how would you describe it?
That feels really good because that's actually close to the trick. I broke my leg a few months ago. So I had a hard time landing it in the last 2 weeks. And it feels really good to have it in the first run. Hopefully I can do a little bit better after.
You know, just like Thomas Genon's style, guys, he's very calm about his run. Back to you.
Calm, collected, and cool. That is Tommy G. And when you look at this...
Oh, I could watch that all day.
On loop, right?
That's a trick that some people say look forced, but when you watch a guy like Thomas Genon doing it, it just looks beautiful.
That's a video part. You have to remind yourself you're in a competition, and he's doing that in the most stressful of stressful situations.
And also remember that he didn't do it in practice. He was struggling with pulling the trigger, and he saved it for the run. It paid off.
So nerves are high here, as we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, that we have passed that midway point in the season. It is a season-long charge. It takes stamina, and here's the heir apparent leading that charge.
So like we were saying at the top of the show, it doesn't take a mathematician to look at this and recognize the pattern. A 4th in Crankworx Whistler, a 3rd in Crankworx Rheeder. Bear in mind, this is all consecutive events. A 2nd in Crankworx Leger. What's going to happen here today, Pat?
Well, let me remind you, 18 years old, incredible fluidity, mature beyond his years. If anyone can do it, Emil Johansson can. Here we go, run 1.
So casual, doesn't wait for the win, just drops in with a truck driver. A 360 double bar spin to downside whip right to pedals, doing a very banger trick on that difficult feature. Ooh, 360 inward table, delaying the style. Backflip tail up over the hip. Oh, this kid has it all. 360 downside tail up on the hip. Backflip bar spin up. How many bar spins is he going to get in this 360? 360 triple bar spin, one last jump. Opposite 360 bar spin and downside whip.
Whoa! A slight slip of the pedal, but up to that point, virtually flawless.
Oh, I cannot believe the tricks he fit into 7 features. Look at that, he can't even believe it.
And there it is, a pump fist from the Swede.
That was insanity.
Yeah. So 4th place check, 3rd place check, 2nd place check, off the list.
Oh,
now,
man.
Will we
now
see a
up to
1st
the
place
judges.
finish?
Can we please savor this run in slow motion? 360, bar spin off the top. We call that a truck driver. Now this jump is very difficult to trick, but he's doing a difficult trick on it. 360, double bar spin to downside whip. That tail up is his opposite direction. Delayed style on that 360 to inward table. This is the future, and we're getting to look at it right now. Is the future now? Is this kid gonna go in 1st place with this run? Very tough trick to do on that hip. And the whole time I'm thinking, you know what? Is he gonna try that opposite 360 bar spin to downside tail up? He doesn't miss a beat. You know that last trick is on his mind, but he's still getting all the bar spins on that 360 triple bar spin. Here we go. Spinning his unnatural direction with the 360. Throwing the bars his unnatural direction with the bar spin. And then finally now, he gets to do something his natural way with that natural downside tail whip. And bear in mind, he did a 360 double bar spin downside whip at the top, so very complimentary on the bottom.
So permission to, I get critical on that. How much for the slip?
You know what, I think we saw Brett Rheeder have a slip on the last jump last week too, but in the context of his run, considering what trick it was and what trick he'd already done earlier up, I think it's not gonna hurt him that much.
When you see that amount of combinations packed that tightly too, it's it definitely, like Paul Rack said, it's the riders themselves that are upping the expectations.
Yeah, they've pushed it to the point where there's no room for error. When you got guys doing runs like that, you cannot have a filler trick on any of these features on the course.
So much deliberation as our esteemed judging panel really starts to break down what we just witnessed. Remember, we're still in the midst of the first of 2 runs where best run counts. We'll re-rack the order following the first runs based on their performance on those first runs.
Look at that smirk. He knows he just dropped a hammer of a run.
So the score to beat to move into first place is an 89.33 held by Thomas Lemoine. Scores coming in. What is it going to be? An 84.
Whoa.
So Johansson moves into third place. So on podium position for the moment, but if he wants that top spot, he's going to have to lay it all on the line on his second and final run. As we look at our current standings, Lemoine on top with the 89.33, Godziek in second, Johansson in third, and Tommy G in fourth. So, what a year it has been following the massive win at Red Bull Joyride, followed to a knee injury for Brett Rheeder.
And a long recovery time with a lot of rehab after that knee surgery. But look at how this guy came back, true to form, a backflip, one-footed can-can off the flat drop right into a double tail up. Basically, this run, would it win today? We've seen so much crazy stuff already happen. He's really gonna have to dig deep. That backflip bar spin, opposite tail up. But here's what separates Brett Rheeder from the rest of the field. Taking the most difficult feature on the course and then doing a huge trick on it. Backflip tail up on that cannon log. Nobody else even daring to come close to that trick. And then on the finish line jump, had something that complemented a trick up above and a trick that nobody else was doing in the event. Of course, a front flip into the whale tail, 360 double bar spin down, but this is the trick I'm talking about. Cork 720 with a bar spin, and he had a slight pedal bobble, but in the context of that run, it was still enough to put him on the top step of the podium.
So following his absence in Rotorua, came back, as you just saw, in Leger. The big question, can Rheeder go back-to-back this season and get a win? He is one of two riders in the running for the Triple Crown title. You have to win 3 out of the 4 events of the season. Forever focused, the resurgent Rheeder drops in to run number 1.
Butterflies right now to see Brett Rheeder drop into this run. An opposite 360 bar spin, a backflip double bar spin on the dirt-to-dirt feature. After watching the runs that he just saw, to maintain composure and do what he knows he needs to do, an opposite Cork 720, can he link it right into the regular Cork 720 bar spin? Oh man, landing flat but carrying speed. Opposite truck driver in, 360, double bar spin down, one last jump, no paddles taken, backflip double tail, two paddles!
Rheeder does it!
Wow, Pat!
We saw him in the lab as in practice, just really smoothing that run out. And he just delivered it. You saw, I think that look right there says it all.
These guys have a monitor up at the top. They get to watch their competitors do their run. And you know what? I think we did a little lip reading. That run.
To come back stronger than ever, the way Rheeder has.
Okay, slow motion replays. Was there any bobbles? The opposite 360 bar spin off the top. A backflip double bar spin on the second feature. Every feature, a hammer trick. Backflip one-footed can-can on the cannon log. And look at this, believe it or not, that's an opposite Cork 720. Now here, huge amplitude, getting the regular Cork 720 and the bar spin, landing low, right where Ryan Nyquist landed and pulled out. But the determination to keep going and do that opposite truck driver into regular double truck driver, not even taking a pedal, and stomping this backflip double tail up. Holy cow. I mean, slow-mo replay of this backflip double tail. We saw it before from Thomas Lemoine, who's currently sitting in second. The judge is wondering, all right, can you finish with the same trick but have a run so much better that it can beat what we're looking at so far? Lemoine in the lead, Brett Rheeder, can he take it?
Quite the sigh from Rheeder. And scores coming in. Is it going to be better than an 89.3? Oh! Yes, it is. 94.33. We have a new leader here in Innsbruck. We send it down to Tina Dixon. Tina.
Yeah, and Brett, you have set your own standard for riding. So can we say that that met your expectations?
It was close. I did a couple tricks. I didn't do a couple tricks that I was going to do, but I just pulled it together and got to the bottom, and I'm really happy I landed everything and I'm now down here.
You know, you had that win less than a week ago in Leger. How much can you carry momentum from that to this event?
It's a little bit harder carrying momentum after placing first. So it's been a little hard this week, just mentally, but I feel good now.
And what a great first run. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thanks, Tina. Wow.
Take a look at that big bruise on his head.
Yeah.
It is hard work to piece together a run like that. A lot of crashes in practice led to that run.
The fortitude, and just to see him so resurgent. Rheeder now sets a lofty, lofty bar for the rest of the field, a 94.33. One other rider, as we mentioned at the top of the show, has the potential to be the first ever to be a Triple Crown of Slopestyle champion. That is Nycholi Rogatkin. Remember, he won the first stop. If you win 3 out of the 4 in the season, you'll be the first ever in history to do it. Here we go, Rogatkin, run number 1.
If anybody can feed off the energy that we have right now, a twister on the dirt to dirt. Whoa, we've never seen him start out a run with the front cork 1080, a 360 tail up off the cannon, a new one for Nycholi Rogatkin. Cash roll on the hip, connecting to the landing. Count them, double tail whip on the hip. Now he's got to hold it together, backflip bar spin. Another unique one for Nycholi, a trick he doesn't do often. Into the double whip. One last feature, front flip, bar spin to tuck no-hander.
Rogatkin, high risk, high reward from the top all the way to the bottom. And this is what we're talking about. This is Crankworx.
Not only are we seeing Nycholi Rogatkin stomp the tricks we are expecting out of him, but doing things that he knows he needs to do to round out his game, diversify his plan, and hopefully for him, take Brett Rheeder out of the lead.
These guys are trying to hit the afterburners of progression for this sport right now. This is so unbelievable to witness.
Was so packed and so surprising. I feel like we need to take a look at the entire thing, top to bottom. And starting out here, this is expected, a tail up off the drop. You see that from him. What you don't see is the twister up on the top of the course, the front cork 1080. One more rotation spinning than anybody else in the field, and then a 360 tail up off the cannon. This is the kind of stuff he needs to do to make his runs more well-rounded. He's not repeating tricks at the rate that he used to. He's got that cash roll now reserved for a hip on the course, which will score higher than doing it on a straight jump, linking it into a double tail whip. And here's another new one for him, a backflip bar spin. Not a trick you would usually associate with Nycholi Rogatkin, but something that he needs to do. A double tail up down, and then huge combo. Front flip, bar spin to tuck no-hander. Perfect execution on the landing.
I mean, once again, tough to be critical. Are you seeing any flaws in this run?
I'm not seeing flaws. I mean, I'm seeing 2 double whips, but other than that, the execution on all the tricks and the way he was surprising us, I know is going to surprise the judges too.
And this is where it gets difficult. 94.33. Top spot currently held by Brett Rheeder. Was it enough? Scores coming in just shy of 91.66. Rogatkin happy with that. Plan on more. With second runs, best run counts. And we've seen it time and time again at Crankworx. The one-upmanship continues throughout the first runs and just gets up to the next level in the second runs. Can Brett Rheeder win back-to-back here in the European leg at Crankworx Innsbruck? Presented by Kenda. We'll be right back after this with the second runs and the explosive battle for overall championships, as well as a Triple Crown title as the fans wait. The wind cooperates and the course delivers here in Austria. Stay with us. More to come right after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Crankworx Innsbruck. As wow, we're just slack-jawed. What we just witnessed, and we expect more. We're now joined by freeride pioneer Richie Schley, Martin Soderstrom. Congrats on the podium finish.
Thanks a lot, sir.
The Mons Royale Speed and Style, and of course Cam McCall. Let's let it all sink in. I'd love to get your guys' perspective, because we're bridging generations here, and really, I think all of us look at this so differently. What did you take from what you just witnessed?
Well, I don't know, Pat. I can't believe where the level's at. Like, back when I was involved in this, it was quite simple. Now I can't even keep up to what they're doing. Martin's asking me, what did he just do? I'm like, he spun a whole bunch of times. His bars spun a whole bunch of times. I have no idea. It's crazy.
Yeah. And the fact of the combinations, what's expected, maybe you could speak to that in terms of the level that you're a little closer to.
Yeah, I would actually also like to talk a little bit about the course, because we give a lot of credit to the riders, but I mean, the fact that the riders can do this many amazing tricks is actually also because of the track. Tom Hay and those guys did an amazing job. But yeah, when Rheeder came down, it was the first time in a while when I actually had goosebumps.
Yeah,
he really did.
Let's kind of look through Rheeder's run here, because this is something that I could watch on repeat. Maybe I'll make it my new screensaver. But when you take what Rheeder was doing, we were watching him practice. Cam and I were commenting on just how methodical he is, and you can kind of see what he's intending to do, and then when he actually delivers on game day, it's an entirely different story.
Yeah, I mean, the most impressive thing I would say with his run is that everything looks so perfect. I mean, look at that Oppo truck. People can't even realize how hard that is. And then he's doing a flip double bar spin, and we know he can maybe even add a couple things to that. And then a perfect flip drop or flip off the boner, and that's like mind-blowing. How can you do a cork 7 one way and then a regular cork 7 bar spin?
And then also landing so flat, but still keeping your head on straight in order to finish off the run with tricks like that backflip double tail whip.
Exactly. You can just see that he has been really putting in the work in the off season, because everything is just on point, and we even feel like he can improve, but he still got a 94.
And following Leger, we were having conversations about Rogatkin. Rogatkin's approach, unique in its own way as well, which you have to give him credit. The high risk, high reward. What did you make? Going for the 1080 up top, Richie, to risk so much.
Well, that's a crazy risk, because it's one mistake on any of these courses and you can't actually recover. You could see that in the earlier runs. And he's not quite as precise on this run as Rheeder, but the amplitude is huge and the tricks are so impressive, it's unbelievable.
Richie, I got a question for you. So when you were involved with designing the first few slopestyle courses, before this was even a recognized form of competition, did you ever think the day would come where people are doing 1080s on a slopestyle course?
Absolutely not. I mean, the first year that someone told me, I think someone's going to backflip off that flat drop, I was like, seriously, that's possible? And so I was still building the courses, and the guys were out riding the courses. I was like, that's unbelievable. So this is amazing.
Yeah, I also have to jump in a little quickly as well about now when we saw Rheeder's run and we saw Rogatkin's run, and they are the two that are in for the Triple Crown, to have that mentality to drop in and be first and second when you have that on your shoulders.
After all those runs that went before them too, there's a lot of motivation, but also a lot of pressure seeing what everybody else can stomp.
I just want to say this. Obviously, laying down that type of run, that is the number one hardest thing to do. The second hardest, I have to say, would be the judging. For a little more on that, let's check back in with Tina Dixon.
Thanks, Pat. What a crew you have up there. That's some good stuff. I'm right now with Jeff Gulovich, also known as Gully, and he's one of the judges here. And so let's talk about Emil Johansson's run. There was some deliberation before you posted the score. So can you break it down for us and where you found deductions?
Well, the main deduction that we found was in the last jump, where he did his opposite truck to down whip, and his feet weren't even on the pedals when he landed, and one of them touched the ground. So that's it. Slipping your pedals is a minor deduction, but when both are off, it just accumulates, and then touching the ground is could be the death of your trick. However, he held it together his entire run. He had a lot of diverse movements that are very unique to his riding style, and I think the main downfall was that last jump.
Okay, so looking forward to Emil getting that last jump. And also, watching today's runs, though, we talked earlier about just the level that it goes, but combinations and variations, it seems like everyone's doing that and it's bumping up the score.
Absolutely. All the riders have their comfort tricks and their safe tricks that they can throw in anywhere, and that's huge. Just to make a simple trick into a combo, your score is going to climb like crazy. But once you start getting a little bit repetitive, like bar to bar to bar to bar, you don't gain as much, because we know that's your safe zone. Well, I may have said that wrong, but it's not your safe zone. But if you were to do like a 3-bar to tuck or something like that, you're completely changing your body position on the bike and therefore adding a whole other factor to the trick.
Yeah, that's some great insight. Thanks for taking the time to spend with us. Okay, Pat.
Thanks, Tina. Thank you, Goalie. Great insight. There's so many complexities going on in these runs, and there's nothing I love more than waxing nostalgic, waxing pathetic. Call it what you want, but we're talking about the history. You started hinting at where it came from. When you think back to those early days when you were designing courses in Whistler, obviously when you look at a course like this, whole nother level.
Well, in those days, I think it was like trying to show the people what the riding that was happening in the forest was. And, you know, it's like these crazy stunts were in our mind, and now it moves so much to the tricks, right? So it was so much about the course, and now it's so much about the tricks, but the course obviously has to.
But who knows, man? We might get back to that at some point. You know, the tricks are crazy right now, but I love what you were doing with those old courses, seeing things like Timo jumping all the way over that platform that we're watching Paul Basagodia standing on top of. I'm definitely a big fan of all those courses you used to design.
Yeah, and also for me, when I was young, this was the stuff that I was looking at, and like I saw that, and then I wanted to like, okay, but these guys can do this. Maybe I can add a tail whip or a bar spin. So it's really important to have like role models, and I mean the stuff that you guys did, and even before you guys did.
You bring up a good point,
it's really
though.
important.
But back then, it was basically the riders rising up to the level of the course. Now the courses are having a problem keeping up with the level of the riders.
And this guy right here is a big reason for that, bringing some of those crazy technical combos. What is it like for you, not only watching the level of riding throughout the field, but a young kid like Emil Johansson, the tricks he's doing?
Yeah, what can you say about that kid? He just never stops to impress. I'm like, because back in the day, it was at least when I learned the 3 double whip, then I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this in every contest because this is like the hardest trick I can do. And Emil, he comes and does like the double truck to inward table, and then you're like, holy, that's so sick. And then the next event, he come and done double truck to downside whip, and you're like, when does he learn? It was just 1 week ago. How can he learn that in such a short time?
It's amazing. We're gonna catch our breath. The riders are catching their breath. They're already back up top, waiting to drop in on the second runs here at Crankworx Innsbruck, presented by Kenda. Our current standings look like this. Brett Rheeder in the hunt for the Triple Crown on top, followed by Nycholi Rogatkin, the one and only other rider also in the hunt for the Triple Crown title. Thomas Lemoine in third. And as we mentioned, it is best run that counts here. Rheeder on top for the moment. The big question, can he hold it and go back-to-back here on the European leg? We'll find out right after this here in Austria. Stay close. So will we see a Triple Crown champion come at the last stop at Red Bull Joyride in Crankworx? Encourage everyone to purchase Red Bull Joyride VIP experience at crankworx.com. And definitely something you want to have access to. And where in the world is the second stop on the European leg of Crankworx? We are in the heart of Innsbruck, Austria. What a beautiful location to have a Crankworx event. Bike park in Innsbruck, 2 riding zones, and the good news is for riding fans worldwide, they're making more. They are active local community really getting behind the riding scene here, and it's so good to see as we look at our current standings. Lemoine holding up the 3rd spot, Rogatkin in 2nd, and Brett Rheeder. What an incredible back and forth we just witnessed between Rheeder and Rogatkin as we welcome back all of our viewers watching worldwide. Pat Parnell along with Cam McCall.
I mean, you set the stage before run 1 talking about the pressure all these riders were under, and so many of these riders delivering under that pressure. The 2 top dogs specifically, Nycholi Rogatkin, Brett Rheeder, sitting in 1st and 2nd place respectively. Very excited, Pat, to get these second runs underway.
And the good news, weather cooperating for the moment. The big question, can the field of play cooperate with Anthony Messere? Talked about his ability to always be a contender within the mix. 21 years old, he started at such a young age. We always talk about that, but it is incredible, his resilience and his ability to stay in the mix. Obviously facing some difficulties in his run that are just minor things, really surprising for Messere.
Yeah, but crash and run 1 on something that he can do in his sleep. It was that same trick we just saw there, that truck driver down, a front flip tuck no-hander on the dirt to dirt. Now here's where he threw his run away in his first attempt. All right, just doing a straight 360 this time, not trying that bar spin. Whoa, classic Anthony Messere style with that flat spin tabletop and a trick that took him out in practice, stomping it clean here. Double tail, a truck driver in to the whale tail, backflip bar spin down. Can he get it complete top to bottom? A cash roll on the last jump.
Oh, Messere! The Canadian saves it right till the end. You thought for a moment, just gonna, do what I know, but then definitely laid it a little bit more on the line on that final hit.
We talk so much about how he's now a veteran at the right young age of 21 because he broke onto the scene so young, and he's really good at just putting at least one run together each event. He's sitting nicely in the standings right there because of his experience, being able to shake off a crash in run number 1, go back to the top and do this. A front flip tuck no-hander, great extension on the second feature, and then the smarts to decide not to throw the bars on that 360 because it took him out in run number 1. The style of that flat spin table, eyeing up his landing while he's upside down, and then the double tail. He hasn't done that since he crashed in practice this morning, a big crash at that. But then filling in all the blanks with tough combos, backflip bar spin down, and a trick that's new for Anthony on this year's slopestyle circuit. We saw Genon add it to his repertoire this year. Anthony Messere doing the same, almost even more upside down the end of this trick, almost reminiscent of the way he does his flat spin 360s, kind of ending, if you follow BMX, when they do flares on the vert ramp, that's how the end of that casserole looks. And nice afterbang with the roost flying up underneath his back tire.
I mean, regardless of where this score sits, definitely has to feel validating that he's able to get that second one in the books. Improves into 7th place,
which is going to help a lot for his overall total for the year.
Absolutely. Speaking of overall, as we look at the overall standings, remember this is a season-long march to get that overall win, $25,000. And if you see Messere there, sneaky right outside the top 3, and that point score right there, you know, that 7th place finish, that's going to bode well for him. If
well, he'll be adding, yeah, exactly, not just the 7th place finish, but the 79.66 will be added to that total. Whoever racks up the most at the end of the year will win the overall series. A guy who's sitting really high up in those rankings in second is this guy right here, Ryan Nyquist.
Just a story, you can't write a better script than that of Ryan Nyquist, that he's in second and overall, working his way back, and what does he have in store? Faltered on his first run, can he find his form on this one?
Well, if Messere has experience, this guy has that tenfold. 38-year-old competitor from the BMX background, really making a mark on the slopestyle mountain bike scene. 720 over spinning on the hip, backflip suicide to bar spin, fixing his mistake from run 1, landing on the landing, 360, half bar spin in, a 360 down. Now his brakes are reversed because his bars are backwards. What trick will he do? Oh, a backflip bar spin landing with the bars backwards yet again.
You could see maybe the head nod with that. Not sure if he wanted more, but
I think that was a head nod of excitement.
You have to explain that
There's a whole lot to explain on this run right here, so take a look. These brakes, he has his handlebars backwards, so now his front brakes where his rear brake usually is, and the tricks he was doing after putting his bars backwards require a whole lot of braking. Looking forward to getting into some slow-mo replays so we can explain how difficult that run was. So here we go, second feature. Great extension on that backflip, one-handed X-up right into the cannon. The classic Nyquist maneuver, a 360 bar spin. And then that 720 nose in right to the middle of the tranny on the perfect angle. So difficult to do on a hip jump. Now he does a backflip, he grabs his front brake to stop the front wheel, then he takes his hands off and throws the bars. Now here he is with his bars backwards. You see, the wheel is still turning. He usually hits his front brake to do that trick, but with the bars backwards, it would be too confusing to figure out which brake to hit, so he just chucks the bars without stopping the front wheel. I've never seen anybody do that in slopestyle.
You have to give Ryan Nyquist so much credit. I mean, he sets these personal goals, these small milestones that we've talked about, but then he keeps exceeding our expectations with things like that. Scores coming in, 67, only good enough for 11th. Let's check in with Tina Dixon, who's with Ryan.
I am, and he's down here saying that was scary, and the bars are backwards. Can you explain this to us, because it just doesn't look right?
Yeah, I've been doing some half bar spin stuff for a while, and I decided I wanted to try it in mountain bike, so the most obvious place for me would be the whale tail, so I just did like a 360 half bar spin. The scary thing is when you throw the bars backwards, everything switches so you're fully committed, and it changes the way the bike feels and rides. So everything from that first like 360 half bar spin afterwards was absolutely terrifying for me. So I'm happy to be standing here. That bar spin flip felt so different and weird, so just happy I pulled the run.
Yeah, and it's always entertaining to watch you. Thanks, Ryan. Guys.
Thanks, Tina. So we'll have to take into account that 11th place for the moment. We'll see where he ends up in the shuffle through the rest of the second runs, but still a contender, I want to point out, going in to the fourth and final stop come Red Bull Joyride in Whistler. So for the moment, Rheeder still on top. That 94.33 Rogatkin came back swinging, guns ablaze with the 91.6. That's going to be the scariest back and forth. They're going to be our last two riders. What we do after the first runs is we re-rack the order based on the success of their first runs as we get ready for Torquato Testa, the 23-year-old out of Monza, Italy.
Yeah, we re-rack based on the success of their runs or the difficulties in their runs. And a rider who had some difficulty in run number one is this guy right here, Torquato Testa, out of Italy, looking to land the double backflip on the last jump after over-rotating in run number one. Into the four-pack, 360 table, linking that into the second jump of the four-pack, a backflip tail whip, dropping a pedal but holding on. So now he's thinking so much about that double flip that he's missing tricks in and out of the whale tail, and knowing that that means you're not going to get a top score for the day, deciding not to go for that double flip.
So unfortunate for the Italian. All about his hard work, and when you talk about his current placing, in striking distance for an overall title, that's not going to bode well for Torquato.
No, and that's the thing, it's always a bummer to see a rider throw away a run because it is about the total points tally at the end of the year for that overall. And once you're at the finish corral of Joyride, you're going to be wanting to have as many numbers next to your name as possible for the overall series.
So just to reiterate, prior to dropping into that run, third in overall Crankworx standings by virtue of the second and 10th in Leger, and right there, best he'll be able to do is 15th place today. And we jump up top, and there's Matt Jones out of Great Britain. We've talked about the saga of suffering mishaps. But it's all about confidence when it comes to competition. Here's what he had to say.
Taking the J last week, which cost me a lot of points in a good place, so I'm kind of here to make it count and make it happen this time. But I'm mentally confident and strong. I mean, the course is really cool. It's got hips in it. I really enjoy riding hips. Grew up riding trails in the woods, so that's good for me. But yeah, I'm definitely confident.
So confidence is a good thing, and just get clairvoyant for us if you can.
Well, that was confidence before his first run.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's still feeling confident after that first run, because you know what, it's just more of the same. If this were a class, he would not be receiving a grade. He would have an incomplete. We want to see at least a pass or a fail.
He wants the stars in the happy face. Will we see the double flip executed cleanly at the end?
Oh, a little bit of an over-rotation, reminiscent of second run last week, but holding on, that tire does not blow out this time. Maintaining composure. Great extension on all these tricks. Can he nail this 720? Oh, no.
And just
the
like
tire again.
that.
You've got to be kidding me.
The curse of
how many
tire
times?
Blown for the second time for Matt Jones.
The curse continues. This is absolute absurdity.
Well, taking it all in stride, Jones, known for his incredible sense of humor.
Look at him. He's like, I swear, I know I got this, guys. I know I can do this.
Wow.
You know what? Maybe there will be a time where all this will be funny, but right now it's just got to be frustrating.
Or, riddle me this. Maybe he's trying to be dramatic and he wants to just unleash at the fourth and final stop.
The problem is you need to get points at all these events to make it there. That's the problem.
So for the moment, as we resettle and refocus, Rheeder on top with that 94.33, Rogatkin in second, and Lemoine rounding out the top three with an 89.33. So another unfortunate mishap for Matt Jones, and let's listen in up top. And there we see the Czech rider, Jakub Vencl, 53 on his first run. Definitely can improve. Was the first rider out of the gate, a full pole. What does he have to add to inch his way a little bit higher up?
Well, he started the event off on the right foot, but he did miss a couple tricks. He has more in the chamber. And now having something to fall back on, he can really kind of throw caution to the wind.
Started riding at 9 years old, competed, then started focusing on slopestyle when he was 17.
Flip off the flat drop, 360, gets the hands off this time. 360 tuck, no hander. Is his tire gonna stay on the rim? There we go, that's an opposite 360 on the cannon. Oh, still pulling out the double bar spin. Definitely landing long. Oh, flip toboggan to tuck, no hander. Now Jakub has been sticking to the same 2 tricks this season on speed and style. Now the ability to do some crazy stuff like that backflip tail whip.
So 2 full pulls for Jakub Vencl, the Czech rider, the wild card, making his way in here via the 4th place at 26 tricks. So great story, him getting back on the Crankworx series.
It's something you don't see very often, but you see that focus on his face in the gait of the speed and styles, hinting that he's a true competitor, and now clawing his way back through the smaller events, making it to the Crankworx World Tour again, and stomping a run like that's gotta feel good. So here's where he had a mistake in run number 1, fixing that in run number 2, getting the hands off on that 360 tuck no hander on the dirt to dirt feature, an opposite 360 on the cannon. We can never stress how difficult that is. He landed long but still carried speed into a trick that nobody else is doing. That's backflip, toboggan to tuck no hander, putting the hand on the seat, then taking the hands off, a 360 downside tail up in, which is very high consequence. Good style on the 360 table down. And a unique style on that backflip tail up, taking his foot all the way off the back of the bike and kicking to make sure those cranks don't rotate, locking up the rear wheel to make sure he doesn't over-rotate, and making sure not to slip a pedal, because as we heard Jeff Gulovich mention, they're really docking for their feet touching the ground.
Watching closely. The good news is an improvement, ups his score by 10. He'll move into 12th place. Can he hold on to that? That'll be the best he could do here in Innsbruck. Take a beautiful look at this capital city of Tyrol in Western Austria, Innsbruck, surrounded by peaks on every side. There's not a bad angle without a view.
When you're in the mountains, you forget there's a city, and when you're in the city, you forget there's mountains till you look around.
Nestled in the broad valley between the north chain as we send it back to the top as we ready for Nico Scholze, German rider out of Filderstadt. And I want to remind all of our viewers, for the first time we're premiering today on Crankworx World Tour, select the German language from the live menu on Red Bull TV for all the German speakers out there. As we jump on board with Nico Scholze.
Nico Scholze pushing through the discomfort from his crash last week in Leger, but getting creative with that backflip, heel clicker. Now a 360 X-up going long on the hips. The big question for this run is what are we going to see on the last jump? He threw a backflip tail up in run number 1. We know him for that huge extension on the super flips. What's it going to be? There's the super flip right to pedals today.
After the big fall in Leger at the second stop of the Crankworx Tour, comes back here in Innsbruck, and that
what a showman.
Feel incredible.
The fans love the extension on the huge Superman backflip, and I'll tell you what, nobody does it like this guy. So a lot of tricks here that were borrowed from BMX, but some that have been borrowed from motocross. The extension on this tsunami backflip, definitely more reminiscent of things that you would see from a bike that has an engine on it. Now he separates from the bike and he lets his arms extend so he floats even further away. The visor of his helmet getting so close to the front tire, using pressure on his rear brake lever to keep that bike from getting away from him.
I mean, the physics that are involved in that.
There's a couple physics in there, isn't there?
Exactly. Sports Science by Cam McCall.
Help us, John Brinkus.
So great to see Nico come back and find the trick that we know him for. But on top of that, string together some great tricks from the top of the course.
We usually say rest, ice, and ibuprofen.
Yeah.
For him, it's going to be Neosporin now.
Yeah, well, this is where it gets difficult, too, as we get into these. There's less padding in between, and it's really, you'll hear that it's really about the placement, not the number of these riders. And 71 coming in. The best he'll be able to do is 10th, but should be happy with that. considering the level that we've witnessed so far, we expect much more from Nico Scholze. We got many more riders yet to take their second of 2 runs. Remember, it is best run that counts. Still on top, Brett Rheeder coming off a win in Leger. All right, Cam, I think we're gonna check in from the top.
Szymon, so many highlights from your first run, but for me, my favorite part was the extension you put on that double Superman seat grab, 2 hands on the seat. How important is it for you to pack in tricks that are unique into your runs?
Cheers, mate. I think it's really important to do unique tricks, and sometimes the wind is not a friend, and because it's really windy sometimes, and you can't do Supermans when it's windy. I mean, yeah, we're fighting with that, and hopefully the wind stays like this.
Well, I'm glad you were pushing through. I know it's difficult to do those tricks in the wind, but I think it's important for somebody still keeping those tricks alive. And that was a stellar run. Can't wait to see what you have for us in run number 2.
Thank you.
It's actually scary to think what we might see in run number 2, right?
I know, and you know what he said after run number 1 is he was like, you know what, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to send it. That gives you goosebumps.
Well, the second run's continuing here as we get ready for Reed Boggs. Put down a stellar first run, but the big question is when you see just the litany of progression, what it's going to take to crack that bubble. Here goes Reed Boggs, run number 2.
That was a great first run, high scoring, but it slid all the way back down to 11th place after the rest of the field had an opportunity to have their say. So a truck driver off of the cannon, he needs to add a few things to this run, and he's doing just that. A backflip bar spin, a tuck no-hander. Ooh, even bigger extension on that 360 one-footed table. A front flip up. Let's see if he can get that Quark 720 again on the last jump, taking a little bit more speed this time, and he stomps it. Wow, even smoother with more variations. This kid's turned into a competitor.
Even Johansson was liking what he saw. Reed Boggs. You know, he's gone on record saying he loves slopestyle courses that have more line choices, transfers, and definitely with the hip features, he took full advantage of what this course had on offer.
Well, being on the tour, getting that wild card spot from the first event in Rotorua, I don't know if he expected to be able to stay on the tour, but he's evolving so much from event to event. He's a guy who's very comfortable on a downhill bike, but with performances like this, I think he could stick around for a while on the Slopestyle World Tour here at Crankworx. So 360 bar spin, the truck driver off the cannon log. He has everything you need, and the headspace as well to take a second run and add more tricks. So watch him take a pedal right here. I know the judges dock that sometimes, but if you go higher than you did in your first run by taking a pedal, and he has a unique rotation on this thing. Some people are sideways in their Quark 720s. He's straight upside down, and he comes in absolutely perfect, not sliding the back tire at all. Judges love it.
So scores coming in for the rider out of Hurricane, Utah, 72.33, an improvement. Only 10th for the moment. Will be the best he can do, but we expect big things out of him. Expect to see him at Red Bull Rampage come October. His biggest love is big Rampage lines as we get ready for Logan Peat. And Logan Peat had a first run that we thought, okay, there's maybe a couple of other things. Definitely maybe clean up maybe one place, but definitely a solid run.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what he adds to this run. He has a little bit of wiggle room right now after getting a very solid run in the bag in his first opportunity. So a guy with so much experience on the tour, it's going to be interesting to see what he chooses here.
And just been waiting in between slight wind holds as Logan Peat drops in.
Going regular 360 off the drop this time. Makes you wonder what he's planned down below. There it is. He had a straight flip in his first run, doing the backflip tail up. Here, that's exactly what he needs to do. A 360 tail up off the cannon, straight to pedals. I have not seen him do that in a contest yet. An opposite 360 bar spin, showing that Logan Peat had some secrets in the tank for us in run number 2. Tail up, an opposite 360X up down. Let's see if he can get this 720. He's on the right axis, he stomps it.
Logan Peat shakes it off for run 2 and gets the one that he wanted to throw down.
We heard him talk about injuries earlier. He's had his fair share of battling with those problems. It's easier for him to ride his bike than it is for him to run down the hill. But there's nothing easy about that run he stomped right there.
Yeah, and a rare show of stoke. It's great to see.
Well, you know what? When you step outside your comfort level and it all works out, there's no substitute for the adrenaline involved with that feeling. Here's my favorite part of this run, the 360 tail whip off of the cannon. We saw Nycholi Rogatkin do it, and Logan apparently has been working on that too. The backflip bar spin. Now bear in mind he's doing these tricks on the hips, but when you see him land and the tire doesn't slide, that means he must have corked it out a little bit to land straight, putting a variation on that opposite rotation 360 step down and then going his regular way into that 720. We've seen him just shy of the podium so many times in the past. It's up to the judges right now to see if we can break that streak.
Kind of perfectly illustrating exactly what you were talking about earlier in terms of bike control.
So good to see him celebrate in the finish corral.
Well, a well-deserved second run as judges closely tabulating this one. We talk about Logan Peat being a rider's rider, a fan favorite, often emulated, such the style cat, just. And great to see he's got so much in the reserve tank.
It is absolutely great to see he had some secrets. That 3-whip off the cannon definitely got me out of my seat.
And we started talking about this. Little padding for these runs and the scores to sit in between. Here it comes for Logan Peat. Improves, moves into 7th place. So an 80.33. A score that would have found a podium previously. Doesn't get near it here today in Innsbruck as top scores in the 90s. Rheeder on top, followed by Rogatkin, Lemoine in 3rd, and Godziek. Godziek still in 4th with a handful of second and final runs to go where best run counts. And a big surprise out of Mehdi Gani in his first run.
Yeah, if you think back to the first run of Mehdi Gani, a trick with variation on every feature, but then just missing the variation on the last jump, so he knows what to clean up.
So highly underrated Mehdi Gani drops in.
Truck driver up top, huge extension on that front flip tuck no-hander, missing the pedals, the feet blowing off, and that's gonna be it for Mehdi's second run.
Oh. Such a shame for Mehdi Gani. We thought we were seeing a little bit of a spark there on that first run. And it will be onward and forward to the next stop for Gani. What an incredible week it has been here in Innsbruck. Such a beautiful city and such a perfect place for Crankworx.
Yeah, what's cool and unique about this place is you feel like you would be in a tiny little village looking around seeing the Alps, but you're in the big city. But this big city is turning into such a mountain bike town. You can be cruising around downtown, see mountain bikers pre-ride, post-ride, and like you said before, Pat, they're just building more and more trails. So it's just gonna be exciting to keep coming back here for these Crankworx festivals. So much terrain at their disposal.
Well, the connectivity too. You mentioned, close to the city, and the fact that the trail scene is growing and they're investing so much of it, back into it. And you can see a great aerial shot there of Innsbruck, Austria, home to the 1964 and 1976 Winter Olympics. And now, proud to say, Crankworx Innsbruck, presented by Kenda, as we look forward to the second run and more stops here in the future as we have a multi-year deal. So very excited to see who we're going to crown champ and excited to come back in upcoming years here in Innsbruck. So Thomas Genon, what a 2017 it has been for him. Definitely showing that he's come back with a redesigned focus and perspective, put down together an amazing first run, but then we just saw the one-upmanship. Can Tommy G find his way back to the podium?
Well, being such a competitor, he has won Red Bull Joyride in the past, so it's not about just staying on tour for him. It's about pushing himself, learning new tricks, so he can win again. And we saw him last run drop that cash roll. There we go, a 360 one-footed X up to one-footed table, his opposite direction, going regular there, but missing the variation. And an opposite tail up the whale tail. He looks to still be going for this one. Will he cash roll this last jump? Nope, he knows he missed a few variations up top. His first run was so good. After those mistakes, there was not a chance to better it.
So Tommy G knew it wasn't in the cards, decides to play it safe and ride that one out and think about the season march. Focusing on the 4th stop. So you can see the fans coming out in force as the judges having a tough one today, trying to crunch these numbers.
A lot of surprising mistakes here today, but a lot of surprising stomped runs as well, things that we definitely weren't expecting.
Well, we saw in Leger, I think the big surprise was how many first runs didn't go as planned. I think in this one here in Innsbruck, some pleasant surprises on how many full pulls and really clean runs. Guys truly stepping up to the task.
And the judges having to adapt to how perfect some of these riders are able to stomp their tricks. With that tiny little foot drag from Emil Johansson in run number 1. I mean, that run was so packed, I was not expecting it to score where it did.
It begs the conversation as we look at his first run. It begs the conversation when you have that bullseye on your back and when the expectations are set so high on you, maybe you're seen through a bit more of a critical lens.
Well, it's crazy because we saw that pedal slip from Brett Rheeder last week in Leger, and he still won the event. Like, maybe they're looking at the 360 inward table thinking that he should have had a bigger variation on that. Who knows, maybe he was going for one, but the complementary aspects of this run, he had a 360 downside tail up his normal direction, and then brought out the opposite 360 bar spin to downside whip on the last jump. And if you look really closely in this slow motion replay, so he's spinning his unnatural direction, doing a bar spin his unnatural direction. Now he does a tail up his regular way, but because he's spinning his opposite way, it's a downside tail up. He gets on the bike, and Golovic was saying that his foot touched the ground. It's just barely touching the ground by the tip of his toenail. That's how picky the judges have to be these days.
Like you said, yeah, no filler, no flaws in 2017. The future is now here at Crankworx. Here we go. Johansson, run number 2.
Well, Emil not waiting for wind. He's the guy in practice who's riding all day. 360 triple bar spin to downside whip. I've never seen anybody do that before. And he did it on the dirt-to-dirt feature. A backflip double tail up on the first jump, dropping a foot, but still going. Straight 360 there. Backflip bar spin up. Is he still gonna go for it? 360 triple bar spin down. Now he needs this opposite. 360 bar spin to downside tail up. Oh, slipping pedals again. How did he not fall over?
Side saddle, Andy Oakley. Johansson's
exciting.
Perseverance to go down with the ship is, I'm in disbelief.
How entertaining is this kid right here? I mean, we would say this is young kid, rookie mistakes, but the tricks he's doing, nobody else in the field is even daring to attempt these tricks.
And you hope, too, as comical as that landing looked, hopefully Johansson didn't get too tagged by that.
Huge surprises in this run. That was a 360 triple bar spin to downside whip, slight pedal bobble, but keeping his head on straight, focusing on the next feature. Now this, a backflip double tail up on a hip, so difficult. A slight pedal bobble there too. He's just pushing it so hard, doing tricks that he hasn't done in practice. And when you do that, you leave yourself open for little bobbles, but you gotta give it to him for absolutely going for it. I love to see a rider make a mistake and then just keep on pushing. Opposite 360 bar spin to downside whip. Bigger bobble in this run than he had on the first. But look at the focus in these eyes, doing 2 of these tricks opposite, 1 of them regular, floating above the bike, staring at those pedals going, all right, don't make the same mistake. Easy for us to say when we're watching in 1,000 frames per second.
Yeah,
I think he's riding a sidecar now.
No side saddle. Andy Oakley dismount. But That's going to leave a mark. So good to see Johansson, all smiles at stake. He was leading the overall Crankworx standings dropping into that run, so it will impact his standing going into the final stop of the 2017 season at Red Bull Joyride in Whistler. And Szymon Godziek got a third in Leger. We caught up with him earlier. Here's what he had to say.
This is what I want to do. I want to go a bit different than the others to show to the people that our sport is not only about bar spins and tail whips, but also about having fun and do some different stuff.
Keeping it fresh, creative, as it should be.
Well, I'm so glad somebody is taking that responsibility. And when Symon's in the gate, you have to look at the flags, because you know to do some of the tricks that he's willing to do, you need still air.
Here we go.
This second jump is where we saw him do the double grab Superman. He does it again. Perfect extension, feet to the pedals. This could be a good one.
Just outside of the top three right now in fourth.
The backflip one-footed can on the cannon log, holding the table on that overspin 360 on the hip. Cork 720, no-hander. Tiny tag, but carrying speed. Double bar spin in, backflip bar spin down. One last trick for Szymon Godziek, run number 2. Front flip tail up, can he land it? Oh, the fact that he went for that.
Cleanly hits the eject button.
He said he was gonna send it.
A man of his word, Godziek lays it all on the line and just couldn't string it together on that last hit.
That's what run number 2 is all about, taking a trick that you haven't done yet, even in practice, and just going for broke. He had a great score, sitting with that 86 in 4th place, knew that he had a lot to work with, and never shies away from the extension on tricks like that. Double grab, Superman seat grab. Into the log, pumping speed with that backflip, one-footed can-can. And here's where he takes his hands off, mid-rotation, in that cork 720. Now in the wind, that trick is difficult too. The double bar spin, the backflip bar spin down. You know what? I was scratching my head thinking, what in the world is he gonna try here? Leaning forward, grabbing that rear brake, lunging into the front flip while doing a tail up, and right here he needs that front foot to catch the front pedal. He caught the seat, but it wasn't enough to pull the bike all the way around. He saw where the landing was and decided to abort mission, but really close to landing that.
Yeah, and if you are gonna hit the dismount eject button right there, that's the way to do it.
It looked like it took him a little bit of time to get the foot to the front pedal, so as a result, he was a little low on the rotation. Had to throw it away, but a hint at things we might see in a couple months.
Yeah, and Godziek was the last rider that could unsettle the balance of the top 3, the podium for the moment. So with that, a throwaway, but great to see Godziek find his, you know, his natural form here in the European leg. And there is our next rider up, Thomas Lemoine out of Marseille, and just the other day, switching disciplines and showing his versatility in the Mons Royale, dual speed and style.
With how intense slopestyle is, it's never easy to add more to your plate, but going up against a formidable opponent in the form of Martin Soderstrom, out of anybody in the field, if you can beat this guy in speed and style, he's absolutely a wizard. But Lemoine focused all day, tons of runs, tons of tricks, backflip double bar spin, through the finish line first, huge trick scores, standing on the top step of the podium.
And it was great to see the emphasis put on the style factor. We should point out too, puts Lemoine really in good position for the king of Crankworx, and that is how you do across the field in all the different disciplines. We'll be awarding that come to the 4th and final stop of this season, the Crankworx World Tour, as we go right to the top. So the big question right now, Lemoine drops in 3rd place. Can he inch his way up? Rogatkin in 2nd, Rheeder in 1st.
Well,
as right there.
It may be because he missed the bar spin on the top drop, but straighter on the 2nd jump. Definitely not going to be enough to beat his first run. He's going to have a little bit of fun with this one for the crowd. We have a great group of fans out here for our first time in Innsbruck. He's so happy with that first run, knowing that there's no room for mistakes, so this one's purely for the fans. Big boost out of Thomas Lemoine. What a great, productive weekend for him.
So the Frenchman gets a 5th in Rotorua this year, and here in Innsbruck finds a personal best, podium finish in 3rd place position. So that is guaranteed. The big question is, who will take 1st and 2nd? That is yet to be decided. There are our last 2 riders, Rogatkin and Rheeder. Right now, let's once again check in with Tina Dixon.
Thanks, guys. Well, yeah, after posting scores in the 90s on that first run, both Brett Rheeder and Nicholi Rogatkin said they didn't do everything they wanted to do, and that is really scary. Now, after the next 2 runs, we will know who still has the chance to win that Triple Crown. It's going to be Brett or Nicholi, either one of them. Now, both of them are competitive. Both of them want to win this, and they both want to add to their 2nd run. So, guys, it is on.
Thanks, Tina. Yeah, unbelievable drama. You can feel it. I would imagine that the entire crowd here high above Innsbruck all has chicken skin at this moment, because we know that we're about to witness perhaps history in terms of the run and the unsettling of one man that much closer to a Triple Crown title. It'll have to be eventually decided in Whistler. Here we go.
Back this kid in a corner, and then look out. 2nd feature of the course, front cork 1080. He calls it the twister, knowing what he has to do to win this event. 360 tail up on the log, catching pedals early. First jump in the 4-pack, perfect cash roll. Oh, can he do it, Pat? Triple tail up on the 2nd jump. He only had a double in the first run. Backflip bar spin up. A double tail up down. He needs to stop this. Oh, a cash roll tail whip straight to pedals.
Rogatkin makes history here in Innsbruck.
Be kidding me.
That just happened.
Oh, give me a high five. Oh, man. What? Look at Brett. Oh, man.
And yet again, a new line is drawn in the sand.
Well, Brett Rheeder had a smile, something different than a smile right now.
And known for his all-or-nothing approach. We call it lightning in a bottle. I think he even surprised himself. Rogatkin finds yet another gear. In disbelief as we go back up to the top.
This is Nicholi Rogatkin at his finest, taking his 1080, a trick that he's been using in every contest run this season, but doing it on a more difficult feature. It's going to score higher. Doing a trick that we haven't been seeing him do, a 360 tail up on the cannon. And then another classic Nicholi move, the cash roll, but doing it on a hip. Once again, worth more points. He had a double whip in the first run, a triple whip here. Stepping outside of his comfort zone again, doing a trick we don't normally see him do. Backflip bar spin up, double tail up down, and then huge question marks right here. What's he gonna do? A cash roll with a tail up. That's a front cork 720, adding the tail up into it. We have not seen that in slopestyle mountain biking yet.
So, as predicted, history made by the American Nicholi Rogatkin.
Look at this, he leans forward over his top shoulder, kicks the tail up, now drops that back shoulder into the flare motion, somehow finds his pedals with his feet. He's basically squeezing the top tube of the bike. His feet bounce onto the pedals. Slow motion, thank you, 1,000 frames per second. That was poetry in motion.
Down to Tina Dixon.
Thanks, guys. And Nicholi, you told me that you wanted to add to that run. Well, I'd say you did that plus some. Just how do you put into words what you just did?
Oh, it's hard for me to put into words. I mean, the first one was I was already super stoked on, but I saw these people out here. They're stoked for us, and Rheeder threw down an insane one, so I had to give it all I had. Last second decision to add the cash roll whip. Never done that trick before, and it worked for me, and I hope the people like that run because I gave it everything I had.
Yeah, you did give it everything you had, and best of luck. We'll wait and see what the score is.
Oh, thank you so much, Tina. These are the rivalries you dream about in sports. When you have two riders at this level pushing each other, where are the scores going to sit? That's the big question. You heard Rogatkin. He knew what he had to get. It had to better a 94.33. Scores coming in. Rogatkin up to the top spot, forcing Rheeder to second. And Rheeder the last one to go. Can it hold?
You couldn't strip this.
Pressure like this does not get any greater. What is going through Rheeder's mind at this moment?
He had a smile on his face before Nicholi dropped in. All the pressure was on Nicholi Rogatkin. Now a role reversal. All the pressure on Brett Rheeder. He knows what it takes to win. He said he missed a few things in his first run. Can he stomp it here?
The way these guys are pushing each other and the sport simultaneously is just staggering. And it begs the question, now what is Rheeder holding, close to his chest? What has he been keeping from us that maybe's in the tank?
Well, in that second feature, in his first run, he had a backflip double bar spin. I gotta think he's looking for the backflip bar spin to opposite tail up. That would score way higher. And then I was seeing him do a triple truck driver out of the whale tail in practice. I know that's on his mind too.
Oh. He's known for his focus right now. It's going to take everything he has to focus on what needs to get done in this run. Score to beat, a 96. Can Rheeder do it?
He's dropping in. The opposite truck driver, he looks to be on point. Backflip bar spin to opposite tail up right to the bells. Okay, he's on it. Through the berm, taking a breath. Backflip one-footed can off the cannon, carrying good speed into the four pack. The opposite Cork 720, good speed into the second jump. The regular Cork 720 bar spin, even smoother than run number one. Opposite 360 bar spin to bar spin back. The triple truck down, one last jump for Brett Rheeder. Backflip double tail, he stomps it. Jeez.
And even Rogatkin approves.
Is this the best slopestyle contest ever? Oh man. Look at the camaraderie between these guys.
What a talent-filled podium we have here at Crankworx Innsbruck.
How in the world did those two runs happen within 5 minutes of each other?
So progression normally relegated to film parts, linked together, and a couple of historic firsts, just for good measure.
I mean, in Brett Rheeder's first run, he missed this trick, the backflip bar spin to opposite tail, but trick that scores so high because it's complementary to the bottom where he does that backflip double tail up. Now, he had a couple bobbles in his first run, landing long on some features, and we're gonna watch him fixing those bobbles right now. Popping high, good amplitude on that opposite Cork 720, right in to the regular Cork 720 with the bar spin. He overshot in run number one, landed perfect here. Now here it is, opposite truck driver to bar back, spinning the bars both ways, and then 3 bar spins on this regular truck driver down. But then it doesn't mean anything unless you stomp the banger trick on the money booter at the bottom of the course, the backflip, double tail whip, staring at the pedals the whole way, hoping that the tires are gonna find the right spot on the landing. When he eyes it up, he realizes they did. Perfection.
If you're talking cleanliness, from launch to landing, almost hermetically sealed, you have to say. I mean, there was
absolutely no mistake in that run.
Well, this, by far, the toughest call. One of the most amazing competitions we have seen in quite some time. These riders definitely rising up to the call, capitalizing on such a creative course. And right now, let's once again check in with Tina Dixon. Tina?
All right, we're going to wait for the score. Brett, you're sitting down here. I mean, just how fast is that heart racing?
Yeah, it's like way too fast. It's got to slow down a little bit. I was able to add a couple things, do the run that I actually wanted to. Yeah, I stepped it up in 3 other areas, and crazy like to do your second run in the wind and land it perfect. Yeah.
All right, so guys, we're going to just sit down here and see what that score is.
Enjoy your seat there in the pins and needle zone. I can't. Unbelievable as score to beat. Once again, 96. Rogatkin grabbed it on his second run. Lemoine's already secured the third. The question is, who is going to grab the top spot? Here comes the score coming in for Brett Rheeder. It needs to better a 96. 95.66, it is not enough. Nicholi Rogatkin is your champion here at Crankworx Innsbruck.
Look at the sportsmanship between these two guys. absolutely at the top of their game, taking two completely different strategies.
Right now, let's once again, we check in with Tina Dixon.
Thanks, guys. Wow, what a competition. What a slopestyle performance by just you and Brett Rheeder. It's going to you. You take the win here today. But what does it mean not only to win this, but just to be able to put down the run and battle it out like you guys did?
Oh, the battle was unbelievable. Hats off to Brett. He threw down such an incredible run under so much pressure. I mean, the last guy to go, he knew what he had to do, and he put it all on the line, and he did it. So, yeah, for me to do the run that I did, I'm also over the moon about it. And to walk away with the win in such a close contest and such a battle is an insane feeling. And honestly, hats off to all the riders. And yeah, today was epic.
You know, you are now the only rider that has the chance to win the Triple Crown. How much are you thinking about that?
Oh man, I wasn't thinking about that until you just told me, but yeah, it feels insane to have won two already and to have the opportunity to do that because not many guys have the opportunity to have done that. So yeah, it's a lot of pressure, but it really makes me stoked and makes all the risk and the danger worth it, you know.
Congratulations on this huge win, Nicholi.
Thank you, Tina Dixon, and wow, congrats to Nyquist Rogatkin. What a performance! Obviously, Rogatkin still in the hunt for the Triple Crown, but if you think this rivalry is over, think again.
That's it. What an incredible battle.
Yeah,
I mean, they're trading wins at this point.
Yeah, it's incredible to think what we are going to witness going into the fourth and final stop at Red Bull Joyride come October. But the good news for the viewers out there, history has made. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back, everyone. What an incredible day here in Innsbruck, Austria, here for Crankworx Innsbruck. We just witnessed history in the making. We're still trying to digest, dissect, figure out what we just saw. And it hasn't been easy because we were standing room only and we're supposed to be seated when we watch these events.
And it's hard to keep us seated when we have so much action happening in such a compact amount of time. Yeah. We're up and down all around throwing things.
Yeah, let's look back on the rider who grabbed third place on the podium, Thomas Lemoine.
So third place run for Thomas Lemoine looked like this. Tricks like the backflip double tail whip. We saw Brett Rheeder do it, but we saw Thomas Lemoine do it first, and he took it deep. There's one thing to be said about amplitude vertically, but going long and not blowing a foot off of the pedal is so incredibly impressive. And every trick that he had leading up to that gave him the score good enough for third place. And in his second run, he basically just celebrated all the way down.
So a personal best for Lemoine. Switching gears to Brett Rheeder, words like seamless, silky, flawless.
Absolutely zero mistakes in this run, doing so many tricks and variations that complement other tricks that you're going to see later on down the course. Basically, I'm guessing the judges are saying, you know what, all this stuff was linked together so perfectly, but we've seen all this stuff before. And this is the first time we've seen the definition of progression changing from week to week.
Well, you talk about progression, let's talk about Rogatkin, throwing down tricks that haven't been done.
So taking the win, I feel like a big part of it can be credited to this cash roll tail whip. We saw Szymon Godziek going for a front flip tail whip and crashing. This one we've never seen in a slopestyle competition at the Crankworx level. Yeah. It's a front Quark 720 with a tail whip.
And to his credit, Rogatkin definitely had to deliver top to bottom. He did that. Very high risk, high reward throughout, and he had to up every feature based off what he did in the first run. He upped it again on his second. So he knew what was at stake, and he knew it would take everything he had in the tank to battle the likes of Brett Rheeder. So an incredible battle back and forth, and we look forward to seeing the rivalry continue throughout the season. As we pointed out, as we look at the overall standings, it bodes very well for, you see the American there in second place, Nicholi Rogatkin. When we go to the fourth and final stop, come at Red Bull Joyride in October, that's going to put Rogatkin in a really good position. Johansson, unfortunately, lost some ground here today, but we'll have to see how it unfolds as we take a good look at such an incredible course. And we were talking about the discussion of the riders rising up to the course in the old days. Now these courses are really going to have to keep up with this progression.
Well, it's a really interesting era. We're seeing, back-to-back weeks of Crankworx slopestyle events and new tricks happening. I mean, as long as the tricks are progressing the rate they are, we'll just leave these courses perfect like this, designed by Tom Hay.
Let's head down as they hand out the hardware. So it's great to see a rider find his personal best here on the European leg, and it's one of those things we talked a lot of many of the riders here for the kind of the long leg of being here for 2 weeks. Well, Lemoine, a lot of these guys had the chance to go back home, kind of re-rack, refocus, but what a day for him.
Well, Brett Rheeder's got to feel great about his performance today. In slopestyle, all you can do is your run. You have no control over the run of anybody else, and he absolutely executed his plan with perfection.
And you could see the disappointment in Rheeder's face, but such a class act, and we expect so much more from him. Could definitely play spoiler in Whistler, but how about Rogatkin?
Look at this guy. Such a showman. This guy talking about how he feeds off the energy of the crowd. You know what? If you're a fan of slopestyle, it is rewarding to come and stand alongside this course because Nycholi Rogatkin gives it right back to you.
It was just a week ago that I ran into Nycholi in the hotel following Leger, and he just shook his head. He's like, yeah, it's all or nothing. And today, not only did he do it once, he did it twice. So congratulations goes to all of our competitors, but especially to champ here at Crankworx Innsbruck, Nycholi Rogatkin. And the excitement stays alive for the Triple Crown. Never has it been done in Crankworx history. Rogatkin might be the first, but will Rheeder come back? Or will Johansson just go down the roster of all the spoilers that we can expect to see the fourth and final stop? So we were making mention of it earlier. Multiple disciplines at every single stop of the Crankworx events, from Rotorua, Leger, here in Innsbruck, and then on to Whistler. And it's how you do across the field of different events. Adrien Lerone on top for the men. And on the women's side, we saw a great battle in the pump track here this week with Jill Kittner and Caroline Buchanan. Expect that gap to tighten as we look to the fourth and final stop, where we will announce a queen and king of Crankworx. But for right now, it's all about slopestyle and champagne. Yeah. So one more day of Crankworx here in Innsbruck. And we want to remind everyone, next weekend, mountain biking continues on Red Bull TV with the UCI World Cup in Andorra. So one for the history books, as we mentioned. A first for Rogatkin, finds the top of the podium again. It has been an incredible week until Red Bull Joyride October 20th. We look forward to seeing everyone. On behalf of our entire production crew, Tina Dixon, Cameron McCall, I'm Pat Parnell. We look forward to seeing you come Red Bull Joyride.